Alrighty everyone, welcome back. We are now getting closer to the month of May, where a lot of things are going to begin to brew behind closed doors over at Lucasfilm and Disney by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to really gear things up for not just the Ahsoka Tano series, but also for other Star Wars shows that they are working on simultaneously at different stages of development. These two guys, I gotta tell you, are very busy guys working around the clock to really make sure that Star Wars really thrives and survives and goes back to the way things used to be. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So there's a lot of things going on with, of course, George, John, and Dave working together as a team, but one thing that we know about that is very much a big deal behind closed doors over at Disney is how Bob Iger and the Disney executives are really trying to choose a strategy to really turn things around for Star Wars, and a lot of that had to do with Favreau and Filoni's decision on the current path to the franchise and exactly where things needed to go. So Favreau was able to kind of elaborate on things and exactly what kind of plans they have in place and things that they have mapped out to really set things right and straight for the fans to really enjoy all the Legends material and exactly how a lot of those Legends stories are going to be made possible through a quote-unquote reset of the Skywalker Saga and a lot of other aspects as well. So let's go into this right now. Now, we do know that Jon Favreau has stated this before, that he pays very close attention to the fans. He likes to really kind of just investigate things when it comes to the current fandom and exactly where Star Wars is sitting at. And they always like to go by whatever mistakes that they make, they like to evolve off of that. Now, with both John and Dave preparing to develop many upcoming Star Wars projects that will be unveiled soon, just recently Favreau went on to confirm a couple of things related to the future of Star Wars by stating the following to the entire community. Myself and Dave have all these ideas on how to expand the legend stories of the EU stuff, and we kept questioning ourselves, how do we tell the stories that we want to tell with the existing sequel-based canon? So we began brainstorming on how we could sort of do this reset, or whatever you want to call it, for the current lore that will allow us to tell the stories that we want to tell, and I think many of the dedicated fans that have been supporting this thing for 40 plus years are really going to appreciate what we are about to insert into this revised timeline that stretches from the prequels to the sequels and how much we are able to shift around to have the freedom that was needed to tell these proper stories. You're going to see a lot of this in one of our upcoming shows and how that is going to allow us to do exactly what I said before. Now, let me just stop here quick. Now, Jon Favreau really knows how the fans think. He knows his audience, right? And I think that's one key piece that I love about Jon Favreau is that he knows exactly, what's wrong and what's right for Star Wars. Now, some fans would go as far to say that Favreau is not as great as a writer as Dave Filoni. That may be true, maybe not. I know that Dave Filoni knows Star Wars to the core. He knows a lot of the lore very well. Meanwhile, if you look at Jon Favreau, I will agree he's a better world builder, but maybe not necessarily a great writer as Dave Filoni when it comes to the Star Wars lore itself, right? And that's not to say that Jon Favreau is bad in any way. We know that he got a lot of interruptions from Kathleen Kennedy in Mando Season 3. We really can't put him on the full blame list there for how Season 3 turned out to be. And I think the reason why so many fans are this excited for Ahsoka is it's the first show that had zero Kathleen Kennedy input, that had no involvement from her. It was strictly Dave Filoni every single episode with the help of Jon Favreau. Favreau wasn't even involved in this heavily. He only helped Dave Filoni here and there. So here's where things get a little bit more involved, is what Favreau has to say, of course, is that on top of this, he goes on to elaborate further. Some fans may love this, the other fans may be skeptical, and that's okay, because sometimes in this franchise you have to make the necessary risks to take a good step ahead, to really reach for your goals, to tell some stories that are currently impossible for the current canon. Now, aside from what Favreau stated, this all alludes to their plans behind closed doors to bring in Mara Jade to the story to eventually be a big focus in the upcoming projects that will eventually expand the family tree of the Skywalkers, as well as other elements of the sequel trilogy getting completely erased and shifted. Now, before I get to the conclusion here, this is very important, is that we talked about this big book that's going to release in 2024. It's currently dubbed simply Star Wars Family Trees. And in this quote-unquote book that's about to arrive, more so of an illustration book, it's going to focus on all the family trees of the major Skywalker Saga characters. We're talking about Kenobi, Palpatine, the Skywalkers themselves, the Organas, the Solos, all these different family trees. It's going to add more to the list, and we know that through that book, we're going to be learning more about Rey's background, retcons toward Rey, as well as to the Skywalker lineage. And a part of that has a lot to do with the addition of Mara Jade that's going to make her small debut in Mando Season 4, as well as future Star Wars shows as well. So this is exactly what John most likely is alluding to first as a baby step before moving on to live action. Now we know that Ahsoka Season 2, we talked about this, that this particular season of the show is going to use the WBW, the World Between Worlds, the most. It's going to use it in the most heavy way possible to really kind of just shift that Skywalker timeline and really just give them the freedom that they need, like Favreau says. So, I'm not quite sure if a lot of fans are going to love or hate this, because obviously the Worlds is like time travel in a sense. Not necessarily like in the general idea like Back to the Future or anything like that, but it's more around the lines of opening a gateway to a specific moment in time and either altering that point or just spectating that moment in time. You could do either or in the WBW. So it's interesting, the fact that Dave Filoni and John are taking advantage of that and using that as a tool in Ahsoka Season 2, and Favreau even says it like it is here, that this is giving them the opportunity, by of course shifting around the timeline, to tell the legend stories that they always wanted to tell. Because with the sequel canon getting in the way, they can't really tell exactly what they want to in the upcoming shows, which is exactly why they are going to be using the worlds in not just Season 1 of Ahsoka, but mostly in Season 2. That's where it's going to be used in a big, very important and significant way. So there's a lot of, thought going into this. The fact that George Lucas is looking this over gives me a little bit more reassurance as to, where this is all going. And obviously, at the end of the day, you got to remember, too, that Dave Filoni cares about legends. He loves the legend stories. I mean, he grew up with legends, and he is doing everything in his power to bringing this back, not just on the big screen, but also on the small screen at home on streaming services. We know that the Dave Filoni movie is going to have a lot of legends, stories to be told. And that's basically going to be a part of that mashup in theaters. So, overall, guys, I would love to hear your input on this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. And I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.